Star Wars Jedi Survivor, developed by Respawn and published by EA, is the latest entry in the Jedi series from EA, marking the second installment and sequel to Jedi Fallen Order released just a few years prior. I spent around 24 hours with the game combing through the bulk of its content, which includes the entirety of the main story. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was one of my favorite games from the last generation, as I've completed the game on both console and PC, achievements and all. Despite some missed opportunities with the story, some setbacks with the combat system, and other strange things such as some animations feeling not up to par from a professional AAA studio, Fallen Order was indeed a fantastic return to something that's otherwise been missing in the gaming business for a number of years, which is a strong single-player Star Wars game. Jedi Survivor picks up some years after the end of Fallen Order, as it sees the original crew from the first game disbanded and scattered, with Jedi Padawan Cal Kestis entering knighthood, who now continues his hopeless fight against the Galactic Empire. The story here works in spades, offering many twists and turns that detail a healthy variety of different characters. The villain present throughout most of the game is rather intriguing, and there's plenty of nods to other aspects of Star Wars canon.
That's right.
Do stormtroopers possess resistance training that I don't know about?
That's only for the feeble-minded.
Yes, that's exactly my point.
He's not answering his comm.
Try again. Maybe he's interrogating the Jedi.
You think he's still alive?
Denvik said neutralized. He didn't say dead.
Yeah, fair enough. Not so easy to capture one alive, though. He look familiar to you?
Yeah, a little.
Which way to the officers' quarters?
A new recruit, I take it?
That's right.
Well, it doesn't speak highly of you to be so unaware of your surroundings. Now get out of here. I don't have time for you.
Why did the Inquisitorius send you here?
Because the ISB has failed, so we must do your work for you. I suspect the ISB has been infiltrated by terrorists. Maybe you're one of them. What was that? Ridiculous. This base's security has clearly been compromised. I will report this to Lord Vader.
Security check. Those are the order. Roger, roger. All trespasser. I'll get you.
Battle droids. Find something?
The best part about the narrative is in its ability to carve out its own path and distinguish itself as an entity that's not a part of the general lore that fans of the franchise have come to know all too well by now. Even if it does become a bit ham-fisted at points and downright unoriginal during the final third, Jedi Survivor leaves enough wit and heart to contain its best parts at the forefront of its themes. In terms of level design here, it's a significant improvement over Fallen Order, specifically in the area of platforming. The platforming is vastly improved this time around thanks to a few notable inclusions, those being a grappling hook mechanic with the Ascension cable as well as the Force Air Dash ability. Those elements combined with some very clever level design helps boast one of Fallen Order's strengths to new levels not seen in the original. The Air Dash ability was one of my personal favorite additions, as it's one of the few mechanics that make you feel like you have the mental and physical prowess to wield the Force just like the characters from the movies and TV shows. They even incorporated these flying bat-like creatures that you can hitch a ride on to get you to places that would otherwise be impossible to reach. A rather clever means of traversal. Seriously, the platforming is amazing in this game. Respawn outdid themselves in that department. With regards to the combat system, Jedi Survivor is a notable improvement over Jedi Fallen Order, as it introduces something known as stances. This stance system sees the player able to wield the lightsaber in a few different forms: single-bladed, double-bladed, blaster in opposing hand, dual wield, and crossguard. This is a well-rounded system, although the main problem is that it should have been called something else. When I think of the word stances, I think of something reminiscent of Neo's stance system, which has a light, mid, and heavy form in those games. There's not an actual list of combat forms that you can wield, and the lightsaber itself regarding attack animations is rather limited, mainly due to the fact that this is still a Souls-like game, and Souls-like games aren't known for their variety in attack animations. With that being said, the best form in the game by far is the dual wield stance, which has a low damage output but fast reaction time in terms of speed versus the other stances. It's the best stance to use because of how responsive it is at reacting to different attacks taking place on screen, especially when you're surrounded, which happens often in this game. Another decent addition is the crossguard stance, which is designed like a long claymore sword for some strange reason. Lore-wise, this makes little to no sense, as Kylo Ren's use of the crossguard weapon was merely a standard lightsaber with a hilt attached, but this version is a longsword. It has the heaviest damage output, but it's the slowest of all the forms in the game to balance it out. It seems very forced in the way this stance was designed, and due to the fact that the stance is so slow, the crossguard stance is rendered useless in most cases, especially when surrounded by enemies that can actually fight back, unlike any of the stormtrooper fodder that the game throws at you consistently. The worst stance in the game, in my humble opinion, is the blaster stance, which seems to be something that screams, "We ran out of ideas." That was implemented at the final hour. This stance was so strange and unorthodox even by lore standards that I simply ignored it right after I got it. Why would you give a Jedi, a space wizard with a laser sword, a simple handgun in a game where the combat system revolves around close-range combat? Makes zero sense. Beyond the stances, you have multiple skill trees, one for each of the combat stances and some more for force abilities and the like. While the bulk of the unlockable abilities for the lightsaber stances felt like wasted material, the force abilities, which sees you able to improve the basics, and even the additions from force lift, force drop, and the famous Jedi mind trick, are all welcome upgrades that flesh out the combat system, even if most of these things you won't get around to unlocking in your first run. Speaking of which, once you do finish the game, unlike most other games which see New Game Plus being added on later as a patch update, New Game Plus here was included right at launch, a wise move by Respawn. And in typical fashion, you retain all of your upgrades from the previous run with some neat add-ons exclusive to New Game Plus. Going back to the combat system, Survivor feels like a significant improvement over Fallen Order, especially with the changes to the dodge button, which is more Souls-like, allowing up to 2 dodge animations to avoid unblockable attacks. Enemies are heavily choreographed, allowing a smooth back and forth dance between the player and foe, although the bosses are often hit and miss, particularly the abysmally designed Rancor and especially the Spawn of Ogdu bosses. The problem with the Rancor is that the damn thing kills you in one hit, even on normal difficulty, which is ridiculous at best, rage-inducing at worst. Many attacks are difficult to avoid due to its wide attack angles and range on most animations. While it's understandable that the Rancor should be a powerful creature just like in the movie, it takes away the feeling of being a powerful Jedi character when the game screws you over consistently through cheap one-hit kill attack animations. And the Rancor isn't even the worst boss in the game, technically. The worst boss is also the hardest boss, that being the Spawn of Ogdu. The three-eyed giant amphibian thing from Fallen Order makes a not-so-welcome return here in the worst way imaginable. To put it simply, this fight is fucking horribly designed. It legit represents everything that I hate about the Souls-like genre, as the AI has been programmed to be so aggressive that you barely have any room to go on the offensive. If the boss hits you, you have a small window to heal yourself before it takes you out. To make matters even more unbearable, this damn thing has an unblockable grapple animation as well as an unblockable football tackle that homes in on you no matter which way you dodge, as if it's a fucking heat-seeking missile. It's so bad that the game forces you to jump whenever the boss glows red, which can easily throw you off your rhythm. To put it simply, this is a rhythm boss, like most Souls-like boss encounters. You have to find the right rhythm and maintain it long enough to dispose of the boss before it kills your controller that you hopefully haven't voluntarily chucked across the room. Well, this is a terrible fucking boss fight. Out of everything you could have brought back from the first game, why the hell would you bring back this goddamn thing? It's as if they didn't playtest this before release. And it was actually much easier in the first game to fight this. Here in this game, it's a fucking chore. The boss is just overly aggressive for no reason. You have very little window to attack, let alone defend yourself. It has a grapple attack that, if it hits you, it's pretty much a one-hit kill. Regardless, even if you're at full health. Oh, and I just got caught again. Fucking perfect. Fuck this boss fight. I don't give a shit. I'm gonna play this until I beat it. But I'm definitely gonna highlight this in the video. Because I'm tired of seeing garbage like this. There's no excuse for it. I don't know how many times I've done played this goddamn shit. I've lost count at this point. But I have a good feeling I'm gonna beat it this time. I think I got it. And all I got was a fucking poncho. You don't even get anything important once you beat this goddamn thing. Again, this is the worst boss in the game and all they give you is a fucking pink poncho. It's insulting. Most of your efforts when it comes to exploration is rewarded with cosmetics, be it cosmetics for the companion droid BD-1, cosmetics for your lightsaber, which is everything from the hilt to the grip to the blade color, and finally cosmetics for Cal himself, which includes hairstyle and clothing. Jedi Survivor is such a massive improvement over Fallen Order when it comes to cosmetics that I was impressed with the number of combinations you can conjure here. Cal's clothing is the most important aspect of the customization system, but so is your lightsaber assembly since it's visible on your character throughout the entire game. This is where you can really make Cal into the kind of Jedi you want to be. And the only way to get most of the options that the game has to offer is to explore the various planets intensely. This is one of the few single-player games where I'd say that cosmetics was actually handled to perfection. It's not cosmetics just for the sake of cosmetics, but rather it's cosmetics for the sake of role-playing the Jedi you wish to become. And there are no microtransactions attached to this system, an aging benefit that's become less and less frequent with games of this type. So on the surface, nearly everything has been improved a great deal from the last game. The exploration is more meaningful and rewarding, being less of a nuisance thanks to the brilliant inclusion of a fast travel system that actually works. The combat system feels better this time around, and the enemies give you a wide range of genuine challenge that can be tweaked with multiple difficulty settings. The story and characters have agency and a sense of discovery while retaining fantastic action set pieces with the cutscenes. The level design and platforming have improved a great deal, which goes hand in hand with the puzzle solving. Everything is just better in Jedi Survivor, but it's not perfect. There are two main issues with this game. The first is up to interpretation and individual opinion. The second is a more serious issue. First off, there isn't a large list of planets here. Around 6 to be exact, which is about what you had in Fallen Order. That's not the problem. The issue, rather, is that there could have and probably should have been more. This is especially considering that the game forces the player to revisit certain planets multiple times throughout the story. While Respawn shuffles the environments just enough to feed the player with new locations, it's rather baffling that they didn't just make these areas their own planet. Kobo specifically is the largest planet in the game, as it offers a main open world-like area with multiple smaller levels including dungeons thrown within it at random. The issue here is that the planet alone could have been split up into at least 3 different planets all on its own. The same could be said for Jeddah, which could have been 2 separate planets by itself. I believe Respawn stretched themselves too thin, with purposely limiting the number of planets that appear in the game. I mean, this is a Star Wars game. The galaxy is a big place, and there is plenty of options available for Respawn to have played with. However, this is a smaller issue in the grand scheme of things. An even bigger issue is the goddamn frame rate. The performance is the biggest problem with Jedi Survivor across any major platform. PC is especially terrible with the frame rate for the base release. The game just struggles to load assets and textures in the environment at an annoying consistent rate. I've had the game crash on me at least 3 times but there have been reports from other players that have had it worse, that the game won't even load cutscenes for them. A release like this reminds me of the god-awful PC port of The Last of Us, and whatever the hell Gotham Knights was supposed to be. It's simply poorly optimized, to the extreme, and EA knew this game wasn't technically ready for mass market release under any circumstance, yet they released it anyway. The critics reviewed the game for what it was, hence the high scores, but some players feel that the performance should have been factored into the reviews. Personally, I don't think the performance is egregious enough to where the review score should have reflected the poor optimization. This game isn't filled with game-breaking glitches, for example. This isn't a Cyberpunk 2077 situation where the AI is poor, there are glitches everywhere, the game crashes over and over again, etc. The poor frame rate is the main culprit here, and that, as bad as it can be in certain areas, can be fixed with some patches. The main thing here, especially on the PC platform, would be to include an option to actually lock the frame rate to a certain point, either at 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, and so on. Of course, that option is somehow missing in the game. Why? I'm not sure. It seems EA skated a thin line here with this game. They know how to play the game with reviewers. Overall, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is a brilliant sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, as it improves on virtually everything that game accomplished without changing what made that game work. It also sets up the finale for the final game in the trilogy in a very interesting way. It's a prime example of how to handle a sequel and popular IP. So much so that I'm personally looking forward to the grand conclusion of this story whenever the next game releases years from now.